In today's video, we'll cover a crucial question that affects us all, the challenge of building a retirement corpus. To achieve a secure retirement, most investors aspire to save at least 20 to 25 times their income in a retirement fund. Yet, as we navigate this personal landscape, we bump into a macro headwind, the wealth to GDP ratio. This important ratio sets boundaries for the wealth a nation can accumulate at around 5 to 6 times of its income. As you would have understood by now, that individual cannot save 20 to 25 times of their expenses if the nation itself, the collective, can only save 5 to 6 times of its income. On average, those individuals aged 30 have accumulated only one time their income. Those aged 45 have saved approximately 7 times their income, and those nearing retirement only 15 times their income. In this video, we'll delve deeper into the complexities of this problem, exploring why this isn't just a personal concern, but a societal dilemma that demands our attention. Have you ever wondered why the wealth to GDP ratio for most countries tends to hover around 5 to 6 times? And what does this ratio mean for your retirement plans? Let's find out. The wealth to GDP ratio compares a country's total wealth to its economic output as represented by the GDP. It depends on factors such as saving rates and GDP growth. Let's take a look at some examples. The United States has an average saving rate of 9% in the last 10 years versus a GDP growth rate of 2.1%. The wealth to GDP ratio of the USA, thus, is 9% divided by 2.1% or 4.3 times. Let us next turn to India. India's gross saving rate has averaged 31% in the last 10 years, while its GDP growth has been 5.8%, leading to a wealth to GDP ratio of 31% divided by 5.8% or 5.1 times. The saving rate of households represents nothing but the growth of wealth of households, while the GDP growth represents the growth in income of the same households. The ratio between the two thus represents the rate at which the wealth of a country is growing versus its income. As we have already seen, in India, this works out to about 5 times. In other words, the wealth of the country is growing at 5 times the rate of income, which is quite good. Now, since India is such a fast-growing country, this growth itself represents most of the wealth and income of the country as time passes. This indicates that the wealth accumulation tends to align with the growth in the economy, and it tends to increase at 5 times the rate of this growth. When looked at from the country's perspective, these are very good indicators. But as we will shortly see, the implications for retirement planning are disastrous. So what does this imply for our retirement goals? Well, the implications are not so good. Let me explain why. Firstly, we need to know the target wealth to income ratio of those who are about to retire. A common target set by financial planners is a wealth to income ratio of 25 times by the time a person is ready to retire. This is the big paradox that bedevils all financial plans. How can individuals achieve a retirement corpus of 25 times their last income when the country as a whole can only achieve a wealth of 5 to 6 times? This is where financial planners come up with a valid objection. According to them, for every retired individual at age 60, there are many who are younger and have lower targets for wealth to income. While this is a valid objection, to understand this more clearly, we need to look at India's current population breakdown. In the adjoining table, we can see that 50% of its working age and above population is between the ages of 20 and 40, while roughly 30% is between the ages of 40 and 60, and the balance 20% is above 60. When we use financial planning assumptions of wealth growth at different ages, we get the following table. When we make these assumptions, it turns out that Indians over all ages need a wealth to GDP of 9.5 times versus 5 to 6 times that is possible for the country as a whole. In other words, the average Indian's retirement will remain underfunded by 40%, even if the wealth in the country was evenly distributed. If you would like to make sure your retirement is adequately funded, you need to start saving and investing now. Happy investing.